Hey everyone, today I want to give you an update on my collection of aquariums and aquatic ecosystems. Okay, so we're going to switch it up a little bit today. We're going to go in reverse. So we're going to start off taking a look at the backyard pond. This pond is approximately 1,000 gallons. It features a 2-tier waterfall, a bog, and multiple aquatic plants. The fish include goldfish, shoebunkin goldfish, rosy red minnows, and I also collected some native fish that I believe are banded killifish. The fish are super friendly and they always expect to be fed. The water is a bit murky after a few days of heavy rain, but a few water changes should get it back to being crystal clear. Out of 10, I rate this display as a 7. Next, I have my two 20-gallon no-tech tanks. These tanks don't rely on any equipment, instead they rely on plants for filtration, the sun for light, and fish for nutrients, making these my only naturally balanced aquariums, aka raw nature. These tanks have never been lit with artificial lighting, but I was curious to see what artificial lights will reveal. The left tank reveals success, close to a dozen baby cherry barbs swimming within a jungle of plants. The right tank isn't as aesthetic. I blame the terrestrial plants for shoving so many roots into the water, creating a mess. Even though this tank isn't pretty, the success is evident in the form of baby platies who use the cramped plants as a nest. Overall, I rate these two tanks a 9 out of 10. This is my youngest aquarium, my 40-gallon reef tank, which has been set up for about 4 months. This is an experimental reef where I try to make this tank as low maintenance as possible. I've only used rainwater for this aquarium to avoid the expense of RO water, and I've only done 2 water changes since this tank has been set up. My goal is to replicate the balancing in the 2 previous aquariums where plants remove most of the waste produced by fish. Now technically there are no plants in saltwater, instead we have macroalgae, so in this tank I'm using caulerpa as a carpet, which is growing nicely, and in a few months it should surround the rockscape. I tried growing some red macroalgae, however they're not doing great, and that's because the battle for nutrients is a fast-paced battle, and the red macroalgae is a slow-growing macroalgae, so they just can't keep up. I am battling some nuisance algae like hair algae, but so far I do have the upper hand. Overall, this is a very entertaining aquarium, and I'll give you guys a more detailed video in the future, but for now, I rate this aquarium as a 6 out of 10. This is my 210-gallon aquarium. There's a lot going on in this tank, maybe a little bit too much. I initially planned on keeping Asian fish in this aquarium, which include my bala sharks, my tiger barbs, my denensis barbs, and my clown loaches, which are a great mix of fish that coexist perfectly. At some point, I added a group of rainbow fish for more activity and color. I added my African tiger scat to this tank temporarily as a grow tank. At the moment, he's probably my favorite fish just because he's very smart and interactive, but this guy hates the rainbow fish and he attacks them every chance he gets. Besides that, I have African and cichlids that have been pretty much invasive in this aquarium. I tried to remove the parents, and every time I remove them, I end up finding babies, and babies mature, and they recreate the process and produce new offspring. They look great, they're not too aggressive, but in my opinion, it's just too much going on for one tank. I love the activity, but I need more organization. So the plan is to eventually take my tiger scat out once they get bigger. I'm going to add them to one of the tanks in the fish room. As for the Mabuna, I'm going to have to strip this tank completely in order to catch them. So that's going to be a future project. And I'm going to be left with my Asian and Australian fish, which should be a good stocking for this aquarium. Overall, I rate this tank a 7 out of 10. Okay, so now we're actually in a fish room. On the right, we have a double rack of 125 gallon aquariums. On the bottom, we have Endonymus, my Dovai/Jaguar cichlid hybrid. If the tiger scat is my number 1 fish, this definitely is my number 2 fish because he's very interactive. Last time I spoke about adding this fish to my largest aquarium to give him more space. If I do that, he will likely lose that interactive behavior. For me, that's his best quality, so I'm not going to be doing that. Instead, I'm going to be shopping for a bigger aquarium. Endonymus is just a very interactive fish and he's very cool, so I rate his aquarium a 7 out of 10. On the tank above, we have a grow out aquarium which houses some young cichlids. The tank boss being this young Vieja Cinnespilla, which is about 4 inches, who looks really good for his size, but hasn't really shown true character that stands out. We have a second Cinnespillum, we have a juvenile carpenter cichlid, we also have a red jewel cichlid, we have 3 blackgin tilapia, a blue flash cichlid, and my favorite of the group, a Criboheris rostratus. This fish doesn't stand out from afar, but on closer inspection he shows his hidden beauty of scales that kind of shine like gems. I also have a group of Leperinus in here. They grow slowly, but they are growing. Once they are big enough, I'll add them to my 350 gallon aquarium, along with some of the cichlids that qualify. We also have one of the more unique creatures of my collection, the panther crab. For the majority of the day he's quiet and to himself, but when I feed the tank he comes to life. He is a little bit aggressive, but nothing that the fish in his tank can't handle. I rate this aquarium a 6 out of 10. I have a third 125 gallon tank down here and it houses a pair of Vieja cichlids. I have my male Vieja bifasciatus and my female Zonatus. These are some of my best looking fish, however these fish are extremely timid and the only way to get them out on camera is to feed them. To fix this, I may try to add some ditterfish. The only problem is that the last time I tried to add ditterfish, the female Zonatus attacked them because she was ready to spawn. So I have to find a way to add ditterfish that are fast enough to avoid them and that are not easily stressed, or I may just add a lot more decoration so that any ditterfish could just have a higher chance of survival. Either way, this tank is beautiful, but the fish hide all day and that's no bueno, so I rate this tank a 4 out of 10. Next I have a 20 gallon tank that houses young platies. I pulled these platies from that 20 gallon that I showed you earlier. These are actually the fish that would like to coexist with the Vieja pair. In the wild they come from the same regions, and I think they will look great together. I just need to find a way to keep them safe. So eventually I'll add some more decorations to that 125 gallon tank, and when these fish get big enough I'll try to put them over there because I really don't have anywhere else to put them. Besides them, I have a pair of silver dolls growing up in here, and these guys in a few months should be big enough to add to my 350 gallon with the others. This tank is not meant for entertainment, so I give it a 3 out of 10. Next we have my 350 gallon aquarium, my second biggest tank. This tank is home to my Central American cichlids and a few others, but these are my most aggressive fish. The leader of the tank is my black belt cichlid, who is just over 10 inches. After him we have my male bifasciatus, who is the brother of the fish below. We have a pink fenestratus. We have Endonymus' sister. We have a female feste who is looking great and really grown in the ranks. I have a female dovite and a female starry night cichlid who is staying in the corner to avoid conflict. I have another fenestratus who is looking great. And at the bottom of the hierarchy, I have my female Feste, which is actually looking better than a more dominant Feste. The silver dollars that I added a month ago are doing great and are growing nicely, and I have a few catfish in here. Eventually, once the silver dollars are big enough, I want to add them to my biggest tank, and by then my leporinas should be big enough for this tank. Overall, the current status of this tank is very pleasing, so I rate this tank an 8 out of 10. Lastly, this is my biggest tank, my DIY 880 gallon aquarium. The tank features a canopy of plants above that help remove nitrates from the water, and monster fish below. I have a group of peacock bass, I have 2 monoculus bass, an old female who's pretty much hand tamed, and a young male who's currently a jerk, but he's very beautiful. I have an azul peacock bass, which is my favorite in terms of appearance, and an Orinoco bass, and the boss for the tank is my female Tomensis, which is my biggest fish on record at about 28 inches long. I also have a Messerher's Geoffroy cichlid, I have a Crenna cichlid lenticulata pike, I have 2 4-line Pictus catfish, and I have a Inlacheri bitcher. Now unfortunately I lost my female jaguar cichlid this week. This is my most prized tank with the most jaw-dropping fish. However, they're proving that even this huge aquarium isn't big enough for these monsters. So eventually, once my grow-out fish are big enough, I may start rehoming my bigger peacock bass to local aquariums that can sustain the size and energy of these fish. I really enjoyed this tank, so I rate this tank a 9 out of 10. So that's been a look at all my aquariums. Now this summer I've spent a lot more time outdoors, so I've been absent from YouTube, but hopefully I can involve you guys in my outdoor adventures so that these meetings are not as strangers, but rather as friends. Anyways, that's been a look at my aquariums and my ratings. Let me know what you think about my tanks. What would you rate them? Thanks for taking the time to watch this video, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.